podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wrestling Draft.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wrestling Draft, the only event in the world that is bigger than the World Cup, World Series, and World War II combined. If you know, you know. Joining me this week in the coasting chair, it is the host of the Fourth Official podcast, and I'm wondering how much football hype is in the air at the minute, given that, you know, the next World Cup is firmly underway. It is Gary Morris. Gary, how are you?
Hi, David. Pleasure to be back. As always, here on the Wrestling Draft. It's nice when you let people down the table come on for a chat, so it's nice to be back.
Yep. Well, it's World Cup fever for a lot of people. Scotland's first since 1998, so I think there'll be a lot of buzz around the tournament as it's all kicking off. But there's more important matters to discuss as we dive into the analysis of the Wrestling Draft and talk about a big milestone that's coming up in this season, but more on that as we get along. So we'll start obviously with our top scorers of the week, our top three of the week, and making his first appearance in the top three this week, someone who had a relatively quiet season. It's your pick, Gary, of Dominic Mysterio, who scored 9 points this past week. So it was a couple of appearances, and he, quite to the amazement of a lot of people, ended up winning his Fatal 4-Way first round match in the King of the Ring tournament, but he now goes on to face Obafemi in the semi-finals. So
yeah,
I think a nice surge of points for one of your picks, but is the rug about to get pulled from under you?
Possibly. I think it's one where hoping for shenanigans rather than expecting a victory over Ebba. So maybe we could phone Brock up for a little bit of a hand. I think that's the only way Dom gets to the final of King of Ring. But I didn't expect him even to get to the semis, to be fair. He's been kind of spinning his wheels a little bit this season. Although with Triple A on fire at the moment, and the likelihood now we're going to get a Americano Dom a match at Triple A Mania, then that's going to be obviously built up quite a bit, and it'll be interesting to see just how much of that's done actually on WWE programming. So there may well be a bit of a Dom surge in the next few weeks, which would be most welcome.
Yeah, possibly. Although he is the 2-night event in Las Vegas, he's supposed to defend the title again over 2 nights in that case, but it's not technically on. Is it? If it's technically on WWE programming, he could get points for that. But yeah, General Manager Rey Mysterio says he has to defend it both nights, and whoever wins takes it into the next night.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's getting defended twice either way.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that even just a few more appearances, Dom's been a strong scorer in the draft for a number of seasons now. I felt he was quite a strong third round pick, just for his potential. So yeah, it was nice to see him get a big win and a match that we really didn't expect him to.
Yeah. Second place this week on 10 points, it is Liv Morgan, the women's world champion, who very weirdly is also in the Queen of the Ring tournament, but she has progressed to the semi-finals. Combine that with the Judgment Day appearances alongside Dom. The points there, great scoring for Dan Axel Jameson, the number one pick overall. Finally sort of getting some points on the board, despite, you know, the captaincy being taken off her in favour of Will Ospreay.
Yeah, and I think probably to echo a bit of what I said about Dom, Liv's not done a huge amount really since WrestleMania, so it seems as if they're maybe using the Queen of the Ring tournament to maybe either kind of put in a maybe title for title match against Rhea, but probably more likely to start the maybe expected program against Raquel and Roxanne. Potentially we might get that 3-way that been long rumoured, maybe at SummerSlam. So I think they're certainly using the Queen of the Ring to tell a story.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I would have preferred, obviously, Becky Lynch to have won that match rather than Liv for personal reasons. But it's just good to see them doing something with her, because this title run for Liv has been non-existent.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's one way of putting it. But yeah, I like the idea, you said, there's a story to be told with this year's Queen of the Ring. And, Raquel is definitely in a good position. She just needs to get past Io Sky to begin with. But there's also the option, Io Sky could go the distance and maybe, set up a rematch against Liv at SummerSlam. But again, things could change on a dime when it comes to WWE these days. I mean, just look at Javon.
I think there's probably money in an Io Rio Rhea match
Io
as
Rio.
well. Rio, as they were called as a team. So yeah, there's obviously a story there as well. So there's a few different directions that they could choose to go in, depending on what Tripsy's whim is at the time. But they've certainly left the door open to go a few different ways.
Aye. I mean, talk about different directions as well. I mean, Javon Evans won his Fatal 4-Way. Seth Rollins is now out of the running for King of the Ring. I bet you didn't see that coming.
No, very sad. we were speaking off air there.
Seth Rollins, just for the listeners' benefit, Seth Rollins is Gary's captain.
Yes, and recently appointed captain after obviously Becky lost the IC title to Sol Ruka.
So that's your captaincy change for this season then?
I've done it, yeah.
Okay.
With the hope or expectation that Seth was going to win King of the Ring, go on to SummerSlam against Roman. The story wrote itself, but sadly, it's not to be. But on paper, it sounded a decent move to make. It just didn't turn out the way I expected it to.
Yeah. But our top scorer of the week, surprise, surprise, it is our top scorer of the season as well. Mr. Jon Moxley on 11 points, successfully defending the Continental Championship on Dynamite this past week. And Gary, what more needs to be said about Moxley? He was a round one pick for Robert fucking Shaw and the Draft Bastards. The captaincy went straight on him. He's been the top scorer of the season for most of this season so far, and he's been the top scorer for multiple past seasons as well. Do you think there's an argument to be made that Jon Moxley could be the number one pick overall in future seasons if he keeps this momentum going?
Could well do. I say reunite your Shield and bring him back. I think it's long overdue. But he's been a juggernaut now for multiple seasons. If you think of previous years, I've benefited from him. Not him personally, but I had Claudio and Wheeler Yuta as my tag team pick a few seasons back as the Death Riders, who were all over AEW programming. And whilst that's maybe slowed down quite considerably for those two individuals, Mox still continues to be everywhere on AEW programming, and he doesn't seem to lose very much, which is obviously great if you've got him, because he just picks up points after points, and if he's your captain and if it's title points, then it doesn't half accumulate quickly.
Yeah, and just to put it into perspective, he's now got 4 TV title wins for this season. That ties with Mark Briscoe and Will Ospreay. TV non-title wins this season. This is Mox's first TV title win in this case.
Yeah,
so
but I think add that to other TV wins as well. He's someone who's all over the programming. He's always there. You don't just obviously get the matches as well. He's involved in backstage stuff all the time. So yeah,
the Death Riders angle seems to have legs no matter where they go.
100%, and I think that's where even the likes of Marina Shafir's always been quite a handy pick to have, because of the kind of residual points that she manages to get by being part of that kind of faction and that angle. So
she got the same number of points as Javon Evans did this week, purely on appearances. So make of that what you will. And she was part of one of my me and Stacey's tag team season last time around. Not a winning team by any means, but still a pretty solid scorer in terms of appearances alone.
Yeah,
but we'll see how that looks as we look at the Premier League table, shall we say. So just to remind everybody, there are 11 of us in this season. Not nearly as much as the 48 world teams in the World Cup this season, but it means a tighter competition. So bottom of the table, Anthony Fitzpatrick with Bring Back the Split Season on 74. 6 points ahead of him, Alan Lucas, Very Nice, Very Evil on 80 points. 17 points ahead of him, it's you, Gary, with Gaz's House Party, 97. So not too far away from triple digits, but still in that sort of relegation area, shall we say. But you do have a bit of a lead against the bottom two, so I suppose there is some solace to be had there.
Let's call it lower mid-table.
Sure, why not? Then in 8th place is Andy Mitchell, El Baldia Michicano on 105 points. So, Gary, still every chance you could overtake Andy at some point if you have a good week from your team. And then we move to the mid-table now. So we have Stephen Wilson with the Lucha Dogs on 124. And in 6th place, Matt Smith with Actually Trying is the New Not Trying on 125.5. So 1.5 points between these two. As we go into the top 5 now, we have JP with Paige Loves a Trick Willie on 130. 4th place, it's myself, the West End Country Club on 141. So then Dan Axel Jameson, a living kicking on 150. Team Goat has been knocked out of the top spot this week. They're on 154. The Goat David Campbell's team taking a major hit now from the Darby Allin title loss and having to force the captaincy change. But overtaking him now in position number 1, Robert fucking Shaw and the Draft Bastards on 157. And a lot of that, I think, falls down to Moxley's Continental Championship defense this past week on Dynamite. So great week for Robert Shaw.
But I think if you look as well at Robert's team, his kind of low scorers are all in double digits as well.
True.
And I think when in a season where a lot of teams are maybe down to 5 players or sometimes even 4, in some cases down to injury and non-appearances for people, having 6 contributors certainly helps.
Well, let's not take anything away from the fact that he has Javon Evans, who won the King of the Ring qualifier first round, and he also has Zarya, who won the women's North American title on NXT this past week. So she scored 6 points alongside the team of Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly as part of the conglomerate, and Sol Ruka, who also scored 6 points, defending the Intercontinental Championship. So it's been a very good week for mid-card champions, shall we say. So Robert's scoring points in areas probably you wouldn't realize, but Zarya, I think, winning the women's North American title is going to do wonders for his team, despite having Moxley as the juggernaut.
Yeah, and really annoyingly, from someone who in previous seasons has had the likes of Jordan Grace and Sol Ruka hoping for secondary title wins in NXT that never ever materialised really. So getting the timing right for those changes could be really beneficial. And interestingly enough, obviously the next NXT pay-per-view, you're going to have Kendall Gray coming up against a Lola Vice, which could be interesting.
That'll help me out.
Yeah, because Kendall Gray certainly is someone who I think has got a huge future, and I think in future seasons could be one that could be very, very lucrative.
Oh yeah, Kendall Gray I think definitely has a future draftee at some point, but maybe even possibly again in the transfer window, which we will talk about in just a bit. But before we move on to the Listeners' League, I just want to say, as the way the scoring stands in the Premier League at the minute, I think it's still anybody's game at this point, because, you know, only like a handful of points separate maybe the top half of the table. And then there's that gap between Stephen and Andy. You know, you're looking at 19 points there. And then there's that 17-point gap between you, Gary, and the bottom two. So it's still, I think there's going to be a bit of a battle in certain areas of the table. But for the top half, I think it's still anybody's guess. But the Listeners' League, wee bit of a different story. So the Listeners' League as it stands, in 5th place, we have Alan Skinner with Rated R-Mans on 149. Then joint 4th, we have David Clegg with the Funkadelics and Ross Brady with I've Got Soul, but I'm Not a Soldier. And
loving your work.
Both on 152. Then there's a 39-point jump. Yes, you heard that right. 39-point jump. We have a 3-horse race in the Listeners' League, as it seems. So we have Chris Anthony Lopez with the Magic Dragons on 191 in 3rd place. Aidan Scott with Zadanhausens on 197. And our first Listeners' Leaguer to break the 200-point barrier, and is taking the lead in the Listeners' League table this time around. It's Ross McCluskey with Hiroshi Tanahashi-Brownie on the magic 200 points. His team consisting of Jon Moxley, Sol Ruka, Will Ospreay, Strong and O'Reilly, Tekla, and Chris Jericho. So very solid looking team on paper, quite AEW heavy in some aspects, but he's got some very good WWE scorers, with the highest scorer of the season so far, Moxley, and the fourth highest scorer of the season so far, Sol Ruka, on 34 total. So yeah, whatever Ross is doing, he's certainly picking in some good points. Now, Aiden Scott has a very similar team in terms of the top half scorers, so Moxley, Ruka, Ospreay, but he also has Obafemi, Alexa Bliss, and The Vision. So even with Logan Paul's injury, he's still holding on to second place, and he's still a considerable number of points ahead of fourth. Meanwhile, Chris Anthony Lopez, he also has Moxley, so you can see what the driving factor is here. But his team is rather different compared to everyone else's. He's got Orange Cassidy, Don Callis, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, and the tag team of Raquel and Roxanne, which I think in this season is only going to get him appearances rather than match wins, given the brackets of the Queen of the Ring tournament. But Io Sky, still a possibility that she could win Queen of the Ring. Don Callis on appearances. Orange Cassidy getting wins, and he's got the trios titles, obviously. He is the second highest score of the season on 38. Although he's had a bit of a quiet week this week. I don't think he scored anything this time around. But it's basically, Gary, I think we're looking at a 3-horse race in the Listeners' League, unless someone does a belter of a transfer and just sweeps the board.
There is, but we're still only really halfway through the season. So there's still a long time to go. And I think you and I both know that this season being so long, 50 points, as much as it sounds a lot at this stage, it can get caught up. So I wouldn't write off people yet, especially if Mox is maybe to go on a little bit of a run of maybe losing every now and again, then it might bring the pack a little bit closer to those guys at the front.
Yeah.
But if Mox continues the way he's going, then it maybe makes it slightly harder to do that catch up.
Yeah. I think next time for the Listeners' League, I think I want to put the focus on my former co-host Scott McLeod, he's not doing terrible, but he's not doing great either. He's currently on 145 points, so 7 behind joint fourth. We'll break down his team in a bit more detail next time around. Just a little cheeky preview for next week. But before we move away from the Listeners' League, let's all laugh at Tam McKinley, who's the only Listeners' League participant to not reach triple digits as of yet, and with a very crude team name, shall we say, Liv Morgan's Beaver Cleavage. He's on 79, his team consisting of Gunther, Dom, Liv, Miz and Kit Wilson, Blake Monroe, and the ever-absent CM Punk. So it's been a shiter of a season for him so far, and I think I'll put that down to his really, really crude choice of team name in this instance.
Yeah, well, though, but that we could say the same about GP, and he's doing all right. So not just down to team name, I don't think.
Oh, you should see some of the team names if you've been listening to last week's initial discussion on the Listeners' League. But if you want to listen to that, check our back catalogue on that. But Gary, big talking point this week, because we're now approaching the halfway point of this season. What we have here is what's called the transfer window. So in this week, there is no scoring whatsoever. It all comes down to create an opportunity for participants to either trade out their not so well performing picks and replace them with an undrafted pick. So the way it works is, we'll just use the Premier League for this example, is that they will go from lowest scorer to highest. So basically, since Anthony Fitzpatrick's having a howler this season so far, he will get the first choice of transferring out one of his picks and then replacing him with someone undrafted. His team currently consists of Sami Zayn, Robert Stone, the Young Bucks, Swerve Strickland, Jamie Hayter, and Asuka. Now, obviously after Backlash, it looks like Asuka's sort of taken some time away from the company. let's say, for example, Anthony wanted to trade out Asuka. He would get the opportunity to do so and then bring in someone who was undrafted. Any points that the newly transferred person has brought in does not count. They start from 0. So, and then halfway through the stage of the transfer window, that'll be the Wednesday or the Thursday, one of the 2 days, there will be an opportunity for trades as well. So any trades can be decided by the players themselves. So you can just do a straight up trade. You can negotiate a points trade, for example. Say you could have this pick, but I also want this many points, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit like, you host a football podcast. You know about transfer windows, that sort of thing, right?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if Robert's listening, if he wants to swap John Moxley for Chris Jericho, then I'm very willing and able to chat. So hit me up.
Yeah, and it's like whoever's drafted CM Punk, for example, he's on 0 at the minute. So it wouldn't surprise me if you wanted to trade out like a nil point scorer, but then all of a sudden they could show up next week and then go on.
The gamble you take, isn't it? And we've seen reports this week about Punk potentially coming back and being part of the SmackDown brand. So do I expect us to get to SummerSlam without seeing CM Punk? Probably not.
No.
Is it worthwhile keeping him? Well, that's a choice
that's your prerogative.
You need to take, absolutely. And I think that's what makes the transfer window season so interesting, is because it throws up, again, it's the gamble. And especially if you're doing trades and you're maybe gambling some points in there as well, that could really make or break depending how you go in the season. And interesting to see how teams and managers negotiate this coming week. I think what I also find with the transfer window week as well is it's really frustrating because it could be a week that somebody within your team actually gets quite good points and you don't actually get them. And we've all been there.
No scoring in the transfer window. It's all about trades and negotiation on this one. But so next week's special will be a transfer window special where we will deduce who's been transferred out, who's been transferred in, have any trades been made, and we'll do that in a bit more detail as we go along. But and one other thing I should mention, you get one transfer per day. So every day next week, you will get the chance to transfer one person from your team and then bring in someone else, or you can pass and just move straight on to the next if you don't want to make any trades. Every trade you make costs you 5 points in your current standing. So be careful, be smart about it, and try and be strategic about where you see programming going forward. For example, like maybe somebody at the top of the table, they might not want to make any trades because their team is doing pretty well so far. It's these sorts of decisions that you have to make when it comes to the transfer window, but it can result in absolute chaos, but it can also be very rewarding at the same time. For example, in the 2020 COVID season, I remember I transferred out Velveteen Dream because of allegations, and then I replaced them with the undrafted AJ Styles, who then I put the captaincy on and went on a generational run with the Intercontinental Championship. I was at the bottom of the table before the transfer window, finished the season in 5th, I believe. So it was that just goes to show like what a good transfer window can do for a team.
Yeah, and I think there are opportunities because there are some decent hitters that have had a decent start to this season who are not on the board. So it doesn't even need to take someone as you say, someone like CM Punk or Stephanie DeCare that's not been on programming. There are people out there that weren't on the board that are still all over programming and might be worth a look.
I will say the currently undrafted highest scorer at the minute is Mark Briscoe, 29 points this season, and just behind him MJF, 28. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, there are points to be had.
Plenty of points to be had if you've been paying attention to who's been scoring big and who is up for grabs. So we will make clear to the participants of who is undrafted before the transfer window hits, so that nobody's made to look like a FUD when they transfer out someone and they try to take someone that's already been drafted. But we will dive into that in a bit more detail next week, and we will give an update on, how the teams have been shook up between now and then. But it will be interesting to see how these changes affect the rest of the season. I reckon, it could save somebody from having an awful season, but it could also be a howler for someone else. But anyway, that's going to do it for us here on this week's episode of the Wrestling Draft. If you want to catch up on our back catalogue, you can follow us on Spotify, iTunes, any good Android podcasting site, and be sure to check out our selection show on YouTube, which is at the Wrestling Draft, and see how these teams were made off the cuff and see what kind of crazy banter that we get up to. And if you want to follow us on our socials as well, follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram at the Wrestling Draft. And if you want to get involved with the Listeners League, reach out to us on any of those platforms, and we'll be delighted to have you on board. But all that remains to say is, Gary, I hope you're having plenty of vibes around the World Cup season so far. Our first game's kicking off this weekend.
Yeah, first games were yesterday at point of recording. So Scotland's first game Saturday night, Sunday morning, depending on what part of the world you are listening to this. England kick off next week. So lots of football to be had if that's your bag. Just like crazy times. Sleep. What sleep? The one thing about it is, being wrestling fans, is we're used to being up at crazy times in the morning watching content from the States. So it just feels a bit of an extension to that, rather than it being once a month. It's every day for a month.
Anything you want to plug with regards to the Fourth Official podcast, given that this is like the biggest football tournament in the world?
As we're obviously covering it, so you can find us on YouTube as the Fourth Official 40. You can look for our channel on there for lots of our free content, and we also have a Patreon that's got all of our podcasts. You can find us there, and if you would love to subscribe to us, it'll cost you only $2.99 a month, and that would be most welcome. But yeah, you'll find us both on Patreon and YouTube really almost every day over the next month. So yeah, lots to keep me busy with.
Excellent. Well, if you're a football fan and you're also a wrestling fan listening to our Wrestling Draft, give the Fourth Official pod a follow and show them some support, show them some love, and get involved with the football conversation if you are a fan. But all that remains for me to say is thanks for listening to this episode of Wrestling Draft. I've been David Hockney, and we will see you next time. Same draft time, same draft place.